Tech itself, not its moons. New Babbage and the spaceport exteriors will be there, but the interior of it won't be until 3.9, just because we really want to do it right. But we've worked quite a lot on sort of the environmental effects in CitizenCon.
So this looks like it's been recorded previous to CitizenCon, because they said it'd be at CitizenCon, right? They didn't say it was at CitizenCon.
Showing outside of Microtech, flying down and just seeing how seamlessly
it transitions.
The transitions to detail. There's no popping, there's no LODs that you can appreciate. You're in a snowstorm and you can barely see, and on your helmet visor, it's slush, or on your canopy, there's slush, or you're in a rainstorm, there's raindrops, you're going through a cloud.
What we've been developing, and we've talked about it a little bit, is what we call the actor status system. Basically, there's a Visio chart of every single thing that affects every single other thing. And what we wanted to do was not just wait till this is all in, but do some stuff that's extremely relevant to what we're doing right now. And the most relevant that you have on an ice planet is obviously the cold. So we want the characters to be reacting to the cold. And as you guys have seen in CitizenCon already, hypothermia isn't just your suit's not warm enough, so take some damage and you die. That is kind of the typical gamey, here you have some temperature, I give you a number, oh, you can't handle that number because you don't have the right suit on, and you die. It's not that simple for us. I think it's got much more of the fidelity that you've come to expect from.
It's not that simple for us. It's not that simple because they don't want it to be that simple. Star Citizen has a very good and bad, depending on how you look at it, habit of overcomplicating everything. It's not just a case of, you go up to a coffee machine and you magically get a cup of coffee. You go up to a coffee machine, you make the cup of coffee, you get the cup, you inspect the cup, and then you drink the coffee, and then you put the coffee cup down. This is one of the good sides and bad sides when it comes to Star Citizen. I love the fidelity, I really, really do, but that extra fidelity that we all love so much also drastically improves the amount of time that it takes to make the game. So there's a downside to it.
Star Citizen, where it's not just some simple gameplay
and
number.
Before we had room system, which is just breathing. So either you have oxygen, you don't have oxygen. And also our suits before were just purely damage mitigation.
Yep.
On bullets or projectiles coming at you. Now with this, I think internally we classify it as basically combat or utilitarian for the armors.
That's right.
And so then it gives us purpose for the utilitarian armors.
Sure, and you've got to make a decision as a player. If you got a Hornet, you can only store so many armors. You can only store so much stuff.
So you're talking about the visuals. You're talking about the impact on the characters themselves. It's interesting to.
I just love the fact that these 4 guys are together. If you ever wanted to get 4 guys that best can explain, tell you the direction or whatever it may be that Star Citizen is going to go into the future. If you had to pick 4 people out of that whole game world that was to deal with the persistent universe, it would be these 4. It would be Sean Tracy, it would be Tony Zavaric, it would be Chris Roberts, and who's the 4th one there? Oh, Todd Pappy. How did I forget the Papsinator? These are the 4 guys that are it. These are the 4 head honchos that oversee everything that comes out with the persistent universe. These are the 4 people that you want to lock in a room and interrogate if you want to know about the persistent universe. And I love the fact that they have put them in this episode of Pillow Talk. This is how you do Pillow Talk, Chris. All right, CIG, whoever it may be that might be watching at this time or watching on YouTube later when I upload this. This is Pillow Talk. This is what we want. We want Chris, we want Tony, we want Paps, and we want Sean. We want the 4 brains of this whole operation. And I know, okay, I get it. There are times Chris is not available, right? There are times Todd Pappy is not available. There are times Sean Tracy is not available, right? Sure. If Chris is not available, maybe get his brother in, right? Or if you're going to do the roadmap, for example, we talk about pillars for Squadron 42. you get Chris and his brother, Aaron. These are the people that you want on Pillow Talk. And I love the fact that they've done that, because it really does show that CIG is listening to what we have to say.
Sure, and you've got to make a decision as a player. If you got a Hornet, you can only store so many armors. You can only store so much stuff.
So you're talking about the visuals. You're talking about the impact on the characters themselves. It's interesting to think of what this means in terms of the potential to customize the economy. For example, the shops, what they're selling in terms of clothing and armor would be dramatically different on an ice planet like Microtech versus a planet that's burning hot, or a planet that's incredibly toxic, etc.
I guess things would be worth more or less too. Like, I mean, if you're selling a bathing suit on Microtech.
But it's also like imagine a place. It's like you would expect to see lots of fairly deep wool jackets and stuff on a cold planet, whereas you'd see T-shirts elsewhere. Whereas you'd see more utilitarian gear over on Hurston. Stuff that's intended to deal with the noxious fumes and pollution over there.
And not only that, the tool set for it we have is far, far more powerful and actually artist friendly and quick to use. So
yeah, I mean, it's an exciting thing for the artists. Like to give you an example is that that making this transition, any technological transition that we make within the game, we usually have to backtrack over a bunch of old content that we've had in place, and it's not so old, but we have planets, we have moons. So when you're changing underlying technology like that, you got to be able to make those updates. But of course, we can't spend the 6 months that we would have taken to make Daymar in the past, and we were able to within about 2 months or so, and speaking on Marco's behalf, maybe a little bit here, within about two months, and everybody there,
Michelle Cooper, all those guys,
we were able to apply those updates across all the planets.
Well, it's not just update. They started from. It's basically started from scratch on rebuilding the planets,
right?
And they rebuilt all our current planets and did Microtech and did all the moons in 2 months, and
that is freaking impressive. When people sit here and, like, for example, Failure to Report, Derek Smart, these sort of guys, right? I must admit, Failure lately has been a lot more optimistic than anybody else than he's normally been, so full credit to that. But when these people sit here and go, it's been 7 years, what have they done? It's like, this is what they've been doing. They have been building tech that allows them to do moons faster than ever. 2 months, they did the whole Stanton system, rebuilt the whole thing. Except for Stanton. Well, we probably presume that obviously Stanton's been done as well. But they're not going to talk about that obviously at the moment because, spoilers. But yeah, 2 months, rebuilt the whole Stanton system. Now, Stanton system is not a small system. Stanton system is quite a large and complicated system to build, right? You got planets, you got 4 planets, you got moons, and everything like that. Now, at the end of the day, they've done that in 2 months. So, Pyro. How long do you think it'll take them to build Pyro? Which is basically several moons and an outpost. What, a couple months? A month? 2 months? When people say, oh, they got 100 systems, it's going to take 100 years to build and blah, blah, blah. No, it's not. Because the stuff that they're building now will allow them to go through and to build the systems faster than ever. 2 months to build 4 planets, 16 moons, whatever it may be that's around Stanton system right now. Pyro probably could get done in a month or 2. And that's why they're taking so long, is because they're building these back-end techs that allow them to get this stuff done at a faster rate. And we are going to be the better for it. Look at V4 tech now for all planets. It's freaking amazing. I know I haven't been able to show that tonight on the stream because I've been playing around with the 890 jump mission. After I finish that, I'll fly down to the planet, I'll show it off. But yeah, at the end of the day, it's freaking amazing.
And that's work that we've been working on for the past 2 years previously.
These evolutions are important with these tools, especially with one as large as this, because as we make them, as we make more of them, we learn so much about what we would like to do in the next one, and then we can apply that backwards, and then we learn some more and we can apply it back. It's like, we've been in the first iterations of them, there was very little hand adjusting. In the next iteration, there was a little bit of hand adjusting, and everything has just evolved over the course of the years. It kind of lends itself to just what's going to work better for the artist, what's going to give us that sort of feel, but in the amount of time that we can actually spend on it. So I think it's a really important component of it.
3.8 is going to have server object container streaming, so SOCs as we call it.
Yeah.
So what do you see as the gameplay benefits?
From my standpoint, the biggest one will be AI and kind of the way that the ships feel in combat as well as the FPS in combat. With our server frame rates the way that they currently run, it's basically 7 to 10 frames. When we get it running at 30 frames a second.
I can vouch for the AI being better, because they're lighting me up like a frigging Christmas tree. There is still a little bit janky. There's still times that I haven't realised I've been there, whatever it may be. But that's obviously just programming. But yes, they are better. And the AI in dogfighting is freaking good. It is really good right now. So, yeah.
On the server, you'll see a major benefit.
So it's a lot less precise than what the client is, and so they get out of sync, and then you get weird behavior, a lag. And so if you get the server frame rate, which our target is 30 frames per second up, then the experience on the client side is better. And a lot of that weird AI behavior that people see, or doors not opening when they should open, isn't actually necessarily a bug. It's just that the servers gummed up or so far behind that it's not telling the client in time to do stuff.
Exactly.
From my point of view, the biggest improvement on the SOC stuff is really going to be the fact that it's going to break us free from these limitations in terms of how many locations and how much content we can put into the solar system. So it's tangentially related to what Pappy is saying in regards to, he's talking about the frame rate side of it. The part that I'm saying is, well, now we can get all these new locations without impacting the frame rate at all, because the server that you're on is still only loading what's absolutely necessary for the players that are on your server. And so what this is going to allow us to do is put more outposts, more space stations, more derelict ships, more caves, all of this content that heretofore we've been so constrained. We've had to basically weigh everything from the point of view of, well, what is this going to do to server performance? Because we know every single server, regardless of whether there's a single player there, is going to have to load this. And so we've already been in the mode for the last quarter or two, to where we're starting to get very sensitive about bringing in new content, whether we can afford it.
We've been that way since our corp went in. Yeah. I mean, I think with 3.7, we wanted to put at least 100 caves in, and at least 100, and I think we got 15.
I think right now, if you take a look on the servers, I think it's anything like 500,000 entities. It could be millions of physical entities, and so even with really powerful servers, which we have, that can take more time than we want. So the whole idea of server OCS is that you try to only have the bits you need to be simulating with, and therefore the frame rate should be higher. So our target server frame rate is 30 frames a second, and like you said, currently, with everything overloaded with content, it can get down to 5 or 6 frames a second, and that's when you don't have such a great experience, even if you have a high frame rate locally.
Absolutely, and for me, it's on the two different sort of pillar sides that I have. So on the technical content kind of side, the big difference is actually because we deal with the tools and the developer tools on that side. I think the biggest difference for us will be some internal differences, the turnaround time for us to run. So we're using so much RAM right now on the servers, so to be able to spin up the entire universe on a local dev box on just a normal kind of workstation was getting to the point that either one, it took a long time to get that thing loaded, because without server object container streaming, it didn't work like the client did, which was just loading what it needed. It was going to bring everything in, so that took some time. But then additionally, we're at a point that you would just run out of memory. You wouldn't be able to do it. So we even put developer tools in place to be able to exclude stuff from the universe, but that would mean that if you ever had to do testing on any of those ones you've excluded, you got to shut down, restart up. So basically, the developer workflow is going to be a lot better, because the turnaround is going to be a lot quicker.
The next stages is using the tech in the editor, also in Squadron 42 for the same reasons, where the level of detail that we're putting into all the locations and the star systems that we have in Squadron, requires you couldn't fit it all in memory, and you wouldn't want to fit it all in memory. And the server OCS, which is basically a kind of an authoritative version of the worldview that you can sort of move a viewpoint around and stream in just the bits you need and stream out, it would make a big difference for that.
Yeah, when your iteration loop just takes that amount of time. I mean, you'll move things once, you'll move things twice, and then you'll be, it's okay. I'm not going to spend 10 minutes, making that little tweak. But that's what Star Citizen is. We're about that kind of quality. We want that kind of iteration. So things like elevators, glitching out with you falling through them, halfway through them, and the server basically being at a different frame rate, or ships inside of ships, or when collisions happen, it comes down to a feel thing. Things are responsive. Things are actually feeding back to you when you expect them to. When you hit a guy, he's actually when the ragdoll happens, you see it at the same time. So to me, it's kind of those two things. There's a bit of feel in that, the responsiveness and the developer workflow, and in the end, being able to load a lot faster.
Will this allow us to increase the player count in the short term? We have server OCS. Can we have more players? In one server, that is.
In theory, it definitely should. I think we're at the point now to where we haven't yet done sufficient testing that we would basically want to definitively say one way or the other. That's certainly what we're thinking we're going to want to be. We're certainly going to be doing tests and seeing how far we can push it. It is possible that as you completely remove one bottleneck, that you expose some other things that also need to be dealt with, and whether those would be egregious enough in terms of a problem, or whether you'd be able to quickly patch them up and deal with them and push it out with 3.8 with a player count, or whether some of that stuff would have to move to 3.9. That part we don't yet know, but that's definitely where we're headed.
Yeah, and to explain why that profiling is so important, and the real reasoning behind it is that there's going to be a sweet spot for us where it makes a lot of sense to actually have that exact player count, because it has a little bit to do with how players play, where they're going to be positioned within the server. But conceptually, you could end up in a state that we've got let's say 200 players that are in every single location, every single object container, and it's actually all loaded in the end. But it really depends on how the players are playing. But we will find a sweet spot in here, because there is an edge where we go too far that it's actually not helping us as much. But I think even in that case, we're still going to be better.
But that's a perfect example of where SOX is really it's a building block towards the future, in terms of, yes, if you actually had a perfect distribution of players, then you could wind up eliminating much, if not necessarily all, of the benefit of SOX. The server mesh will eventually fix this by simply going, oh, well, you're over in this area, we're going to mate you to a server that only covers items in that area, and therefore the long-term path will deal with that very elegantly.
The server-side OCS,
nice.
We don't have the...
Okay, so server-side OCS, we obviously haven't gone through at the moment and seen the player count expand, from my understanding. My understanding, it's still 50. I would not expect it to change much before after Christmas. In the new year, I would say maybe they would change it then. I think at the moment they are more worried about getting 3.8. We got 3.7? 3.8? 3.8. 3.7? 3.8. So 3.8 now, sorry, yeah. Brain fart. But they would much rather get that done than worry about expanding the player count at the moment, right? Expanding the player count, they can do it when they come back in January, right? We've got new ships coming in. We've got the Carrack. We also have the Cutlass Blue, I think it is. And then we also have the Prowler as well. So there's 3 more little patches that are coming out with, obviously, 3.8. So at the end of the day, they can go through and they can expand player counts after that. I would not expect it to happen until after Christmas or after the new year.
The full universe persistence in, so we're going to have a more enhanced version of persistence in 3.8 than we previously had. So if you buy things or rent things or do stuff with in-game money that you've earned, and the in-game money you earn will have the ability to persist it between patches, even from 3.8 onwards. But the proper persistence is, I go anywhere, I take my Elroy's cup, I get my coffee at the space station, I take it with me, I get on the spaceship, I fly to a planet, I walk in a forest, I litter, I drop it on the floor in the forest, I get off, I fly away, and then Sean flies to the forest and sees an Elroy cup when he arrives in that area.
And I grab it and I sell it.
Yeah, there you go.
But then you come back and you think that there's a bug in the game because it's gone, whereas in reality, Sean took it.
Yeah, so the second stage of the SOX is the full persistence comes in with what we call the iCache, which basically will save out all the state and position of any item in the game when you move away from it. So if you have to, which is what's happening on the server right now, it streams out like what's there, and right now we're persisting it in the server's memory, but we aren't persisting it back to a cloud database just yet. So if you play the session, you drop stuff, put stuff everywhere, it'll all persist in the session in 3.8 server OCS. But in a future version,
that's why we're getting shipwrecks persisting. That's why my shipwreck is still there. That explains that.
I don't know when iCache is coming in, but with that, what will happen is, besides us saving the state, which we already will do in memory in 3.8, it will then save it to a back-end database. So if you come back a week later and go to that location, as long as Sean hasn't come and stolen my cup, and I go back and go, oh, I dropped my cup on the forest, the cup will be there. And the really cool thing about that is that all the dynamic items, whether they're cups or spaceships or guns or armor suits or a note you leave someone, will persist in the world where they are. And I don't really know any MMO that has that level of detail at the scale that we have that allows you to do that. And so that is very cool, because once that's running, that also means that, like, you want to create a settlement on a planet,
You can.
you can.
Yeah, that's the big part of it. Is it's emergent, and they're actually affecting the world, the universe, in so.
It's interesting that they said if you want to create a settlement, that's the Pioneer. I'm wondering if they're hinting at the Pioneer being sooner than we think. I don't know. I'd like to see what you guys think in the comments, but to me that sounds like it's the Pioneer.
Many games, it's all very scripted. It's all very, they say you're affecting the world, but hey, after 200 fights and all that, there's no direct affection, right? But this is actually an evolution by the players. They're again creating settlements, setting up things.
Yep.
I think that's exciting.
In 3.8, being a fun of Fight Club, we have something else coming, which I think is kind of cool. We've teased a bit.
This is a real exciting feature that's actually coming in. It's not just melee combat with your fists, it's melee combat with some melee type weapons. And I'm not sure, we are going to introduce a knife, I believe, into the PU. We'll put it in the shops and everything. So with melee combat, you get the ability, of course, to make some punches. And it's not just, simple one punch. We put, a little bit of thought into this, a little bit of fun into it. There's some combos that you can do. You can decide to do, a heavy right or a quick jab.
You can
Going to be the
block
quick
too,
attacks,
right?
and you can block
can
on top
dodge.
of it. But and it's important. It's not just like a permanent, easy block where you're just like you put it up and then no matter what they do, they can't hit you. No, it's positional as well. Huge props right now to the active feature team, because they were proper OCD over getting this thing done. I remember seeing a video that and I think they just sped it up. They showed me sort of pass 1, pass 2, and then it got and whether they were doing this when I see
didn't know that was a problem.
when I see version 58. I'm going, nice, guys.
And we've already started to integrate this into the law system so that punching on other people is a crime. You will have, there will be penalties
But it's not quite as
applied.
bad as killing them.
Well, that's the whole purpose of the law system, which is we can basically mete out different levels of punishment
And
depending
different
upon what it
areas
is
we
you're
can,
doing.
like, so for instance, maybe in Grim Hex, no one cares. You can get in fist fights, but
Exactly.
if you're getting into a fist fight in the middle of area,
I've got into a fist fight at Grimhex and no one cared. Trust me, there was no repercussions. I love Grimhex.
you're 18, that's not so cool.
Another reason why this is actually really important is there will be certain areas within the game to where you're restricted from carrying weapons, prison being one of them. It's like when you're in prison, you don't actually have guns or any of the traditional stuff. So if you want to be able to defend yourself, you'd better be fairly good at hand-to-hand fighting.
The last part of Melee, which I didn't mention, was also the takedowns, which is another thing that comes in as part of that. So that is something that you can do player to player. So nobody's paying attention or anything like that. You can avoid it a little bit. But you also get that component of it too. So if you got a knife, you got fists, you got a lot of different ways to take somebody out.
Yeah, and of course, the other big one that will have a very big impact on some of the missions and stuff is the potential for stealth gameplay, and that type of stuff. Whether it's actually knives or just silent takedown, sleeper holes, whatever else.
We got some cool mission stuff coming in 3.8.
The biggest introduction would be the 890 jump mission. And then from there, we're doing a lot of kind of quality of life passes on the way that the mission works, how things are doled out to the player, what actually happens in the mission. Some of them are a little bit boring, and figuring out how we can interject new things. Same with interjecting AI and other aspects to freshen it up.
Yeah, and that's one that we want to capitalize on. Going forward, I think we're at the point now to where the combat is mature enough, and some of the other loose ends that we need to tie
There's definitely
up.
improvements to the combat that will be in 3.8 that you haven't seen, that people haven't seen in 3.7, or didn't even see in the video we did with the, because that was super early work in progress on the 890 jump mission. That I think all the time the AI is getting better, their ability to pathfind, beyond 3.8, just pathfinding on planets, or arriving on a ship, getting off a ship, coming in as reinforcements.
Transitioning between different zones.
Yeah, people riding AI riding the tram, for instance.
Yeah, that's a huge one.
But that's one of the most interesting ones to me. Which
not in 3.8, just to let everyone know.
I would say
it will be in 3.9.40. Also, one other thing we're delivering with 3.8 is the space stations or rest stops. You want to tell us a bit about that, because greatly expanded from what we have.
Yeah, just the overall size of them, the visual difference between them, the hub sizes that are in there, the way that we procedurally generate them. We've got HABs, we've got Elroys, having them in low orbit around planets.
So they'll basically be a sort of geosynchronous station that will be for each one of the major planets. You don't have to go all the way down to you can go there, you can save in orbit versus having to go all the way down to the planet.
And also certain people that have certain ships that will not be able to land on planets.
They can go there. Yeah.
Yes, they can go there and then obviously get transferred down.
That's pretty
One
cool.
of the other long-term projects we have is sort of the...
I'm really looking forward to that. I really want to be able to land at Port Tressa, for example, which is above Microtech, for example, and then catch a AI shuttle down. That would be cool.
Combat, right? So there's the FPS combat, which
yeah.
you already hinted at that you've been increasing some of the reaction and the speeds.
Exactly.
We've still got more to do. I think there's some more networking stuff that we have to do to make that better. Vehicle combat's another big one, right?
We didn't mention that is coming into 3.8 is the Animus missile launcher. It's a FPS missile launcher. It's got a 3-missile sort of range.
the gameplay is not as simple as lock missiles, fire, and basically you're going to do a lot of damage. It's you need to get in close enough, or first you need to wear down their scout ships, or first you need to knock out the defensive turrets, or first you need to do one of a number of different things so that you can actually get that torpedo through those defenses and actually impact these these big capital ships, where we really want to start drawing a multitude of players and or AI units together and get them all fighting and making it feel like one big fleet battle, as opposed to these much smaller scale things that we've had to date.
And there was one thing I was going to say on the vehicle experience team that's kind of a cool thing that I like for 3.8 is we've implemented this look ahead system, which sort of simulates the way you are. Like if you ever look at Terada's had all these really cool badass flying stuff, but he's got he's using the
Track
FOI,
IR.
I'm not sure if it's Track IR or he's using our FOI ped tracking. But you can see as a pilot or as a car driver, when you're turning, you actually look, you turn in. So the look ahead system basically manages a bunch of things where your velocity vector is going to be, where your target is, and they all have different weights, and then it weights the camera towards there, but not terribly. So you basically get the feeling of, oh yeah, I'm looking into my turn, or I'm kind of guiding towards a target. So the cool thing is that the cockpit now, it sort of feels real and visceral around you. Of course, you can turn it off in the options, but I really feel that, and we've also been tweaking the chase cameras.
Yeah.
So they're more fluid. There's more options in terms of even in when you're on foot, we have like a kind of an over-the-shoulder sort of traditional third-person game view and a further-out view and your first-person view. So then we've got a bunch of quality of life sort of gameplay adjustments we want to be making with 3.8.
Well, I mean, there's just the general fixes that we're trying to go through and improve, whether that be UI or UX with that stuff. Same with missions. If we're seeing any kind of funny bugs that will affect the actor status or even combat, we're just trying to slowly go through and work through those vehicle experience, the actor experience, as well as just the way that the character interacts with things.
Yeah, there's a lot there. Like on the quality of life stuff, one of the things that we're putting some focus on now to make it work much better than it has in the past is to apply increased pressure when you've actually broken law, when you have a wanted level on your character. Right now, it's like when you run upon a security unit, a cop, he can actually call for reinforcements, etc. But those reinforcements always only spawn on the edge of your radar distance, and then they have to conventionally travel towards you. And there are multiple problems with this. One is those ships can't actually, the AI ships can't currently employ their afterburners to, when they're pursuing you, and therefore it's very easy for you to just point your ship in the opposite direction and get away from them. And so this is all geared towards when you actually engage with another ship and you blow it up, there's some sort of reward for many of them. This is another thing we're actually adding rewards for a lot of the ships that historically haven't had them, so that when you get interdicted, you're getting, assuming you actually hang around long enough to actually fight it out with these guys, you're getting some sort of benefit for your effort, so that everyone that you engage in is not like, oh, well, what's the point of fighting this guy and burning through some of my fuel and my ammo when when I'm getting nothing out of it. Now, we are actually dangling on occasion some significant rewards. Obviously, those are more rare, but you're always kind of wondering what you're going to get when you crack the egg open.
If you're getting attacked by, say, a pirate or something, if you sort of ID them, then potentially that pirate had a bounty on their head,
yes,
and you'll get paid money for actually fighting them versus just having to fight to get out of it.
Yeah, that was another thing that we've been focused on, which is actually on these characters that engage with you, they can now optionally have a wanted level. And if you actually go to the trouble of scanning them and identifying and figuring out that they had a wanted level, then the implication is that after you killed them, you would have retrieved the black box, their body, whatever, and turned it in. But for right now, what we're going to simply do is, if you've verified that there is a bounty on this particular character and you kill them, then you immediately get the benefit.
Okay, well, great. I think that was a pretty fun conversation about a bunch of stuff that will be up and coming in Star Citizen this year. Of course, it's not everything we're working on because we've got cool stuff down the road. But as you can tell, there's a lot of stuff that's coming together that's, I think, really making the game come alive and has a huge opportunity to make the game emergent and just allow for gameplay that we haven't seen before. So just definitely makes me excited. I think it makes all these guys super excited too. So, but I'm looking forward to everybody playing 3.8 and seeing lots of cool screenshots and videos and Tales of Adventure. Thank you very much.
All right, cool. Okay, I thought it was really, really, really well done. I liked it. I like the fact that Chris was there. I like the fact that Todd was there, Sean Tracy was there, that Tony was there. These, like I said, these are the 4 guys that you want in a Pillar Talk. I love the fact that all 4 of them were there. Pretty much everything that they were talking about, we already knew. But it's good to hear it all again. Obviously, the major thing that I learned about this was the fact that they were saying it's also ships that are going to carry over as well, and guns and stuff. I never heard that before. I thought it was just money. But yeah, obviously at the end of the day, just playing the game, obviously we have seen there is definitely a different... Oh, I've been kicked out. That's right, I was going to quit anyway. There's obviously been a very lot of work gone in the back ends. Because like I said, I was doing dogfighting and I was coming across parts of wreckages. Mainly my previous wreckage, but you know what I mean. So that stuff is obviously new and that is pretty cool as well. But yeah, like I said, I love the fact that those guys were there. That's how a Pillar Talk should be. Is those 4 guys. So yeah, definitely pretty cool. Apart from that, I think that was the only video that was put up today. Yep, an hour ago. Apart from that, guys, let me know what your thoughts are in the comment section below. What did you learn from this episode of Pillar Talk? What did you find was interesting? Was there anything that you thought was a bit meh? Let me know what your thoughts are in that comment section below. If this video has been helpful, obviously please smack that like button. If you're new to the channel, welcome and subscribe. Guys, I'm reminding everybody, I do stream somewhat fairly regularly. although inconsistent times because I haven't worked out a schedule yet. So obviously, link below for Twitch. Go hit that follow button and hit notifications because obviously that's important because that way you know when I'm going online. Apart from that, guys, obviously the video's been helpful. Like I say, smack that like button. Apart from that, guys, I'll see you in the next demonetized video.